Thank you so much for staying with us. Now to our interview with the guest of the day. I'm joined by an economist, Oyedeji, for discussion on President Bola Tinubu's economic goals 6 months after inauguration. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Oyedeji. Always a pleasure having you on Politics
Thank you very
tonight.
much for having me too.
Right. So let's start with the way the president's administration has been running the economy in the past 6 months. I mean, arguably, President Bola Tinubu was handed a country with huge socioeconomic problems. And added to that challenge, or the challenges, was the fallout of the fuel subsidy removal. It's been 6 months. What's your impression?
Well, it's been a mixed bag, really, and that's expected. He inherited the very bad economy. The economy was in a bad shape when he came in. Remember, we were just recovering from COVID. Then we had our own internal challenges. We had all kinds of things. Then we had to go for the election. Shortly before the election, we had an unprecedented development which led to lack of cash scarcity, that led to heightened inflation and all the like. So we came in at a very challenging period. The economy has never been that precarious since the end of the Civil War. We will probably have it that bad during the June 12 crisis or so. So he inherited a country, an economy that was in a very bad shape. The government was on a life support, if I can put it that way, borrowing money every day to sustain itself. By the time this government left, it was in record that it had borrowed about 23 trillion naira by ways and means from the CBN. So we were practically living each day as it came. Before the new government came, we were living on life supports, borrowing money, minting money. Nobody knew exactly what was happening. There was instability, there was inflation. The inflation was rising at a very rapid state. There were inconsistencies in policies. There were policies which the unintended consequences were not properly evaluated. So Mr. President had his job cut out when he became the president. And I think he was quite aware of some of these challenges. And he left no one in doubt that he was going to run an economy that would be market-driven and be private sector-led. That determination led him to undertake some very unprecedented reforms within the economy, which has to do with the removal of fuel subsidy, then removing the neck-jack foreign exchange system and making it to reflect the market, to also make it to be market-driven. So by and large, he has set his foot on a very challenging mission. He has embarked on a very challenging mission, but he's taking it in his stride. In fairness to the president, he's taking Nigeria through a difficult but inevitable route or reform. If were implemented, many of us who are following or analyzing this government believe that there's light at the end of the tunnel, but it's going to be quite challenging. The results which we have so far is not sufficient enough to pass a judgment on him. In terms of at the level of strategy, he has done very well. He has lived up to expectation. He has done what he said he would do. And interestingly, what he's doing now, what he said he would do, there was a consensus surrounding those things before the election. All the three leading candidates agreed that that should be the approach. They agreed that fuel subsidy has outlived its usefulness. They agreed that foreign exchange system should reflect market dynamics more, and government should stop funding foreign exchange or subsidizing foreign exchange or using scarce dollars to keep the naira alive. So what he's doing is clear to him, and I think it is clear to key observers of his government that he wants key reforms that will promote efficiency within the economy. He wants key reforms that will put the private sector at the front of the economy. He wants reforms where wealth to be created, that will lead to wealth creation, and that wealth creation will be managed, will be promoted by key private sector players. And when you have that kind of wealth creation, it always leads to empowerment of every economic agent. But you see, that's on one side. These reforms are not cheap. Critical reforms in every economy always come at a very huge cost. This is not different. We are undertaking a very difficult reforms at a time when Nigerians were already pushed to a difficult position, when they have become very poor in terms of what they have as disposable income. But he has to do what he's doing because there are two options. Is either we will continue the way we have continued, we have run the government in the past 15 years or thereabouts, and we'll all come to a sudden end. Or we change the ways we are doing things. If he had left things the way he met it, by now it is likely to be that Nigeria would have become bankrupt, would have had a much bigger economic crisis at hand. We'll have crisis from the labor movement. We'll have state governments that will not be able to pay living wage or any form of wage. In fact, as a matter of fact, the previous government borrowed not just for itself, but also for other tiers of government, the states and local government. So everything was in a mess. So the new direction is very clear. Nigerians will make sacrifices. So that sacrifice is taking resources from the pocket of an average Nigerian to government resources, to government coffers, so that government can be viable. And what government will do in return is to make sure that the resources at its kitty, at its disposal, is used to bail out the people too. This is where the challenge is, creating a balance between the two. We have swallowed the bitter pill. The citizens have swallowed the bitter pill. They have made sacrifices. The disposable income in their pockets has been halved or reduced considerably. So it's left for government now to expand its policies to make sure that the benefit of these reforms get back to households and businesses. The benefit of these reforms translate to job creation. These reforms translate to improvement in people's welfare. And government is working on that too. How much of result they're able to get will be determined by the level of seriousness and honesty they put into it. There is a committee presently to review the tax system so that we do not have multiplicity of tax system, number one, then that they're able to expand the tax net so that government can consolidate on the little gains achieved. Then in addition to that, government has set out targets for itself. In 3 years, government wants to grow the economy to $1 trillion, which is commendable. To achieve that from what we have, about $450 billion or thereabouts.
Before we get to that, because I'm very interested in that. I mean, the president, upon assumption of office, the president went on to form his cabinet. And as we speak, you can say the economic team of the president is in place. But for you, what impact do you say the team has made on the economy?
Well, we've had 6 months so far. It's too early to assess the impact of government policies. The current impact is that of making sacrifices, like I said, taking money from the citizens, taking money from wherever government can get it, and taking the money, making sure that the money sustains government. Government does not collapse. If government collapses, then the economy has collapsed, Nigeria has collapsed. So what government has done within a few months of its existence is to make sure that it strengthens government's position to be able to bail out citizens. So it's a mutual thing. We are bailing out government. The government will deploy that resources which we have given government through the removal of fuel subsidy and other means to bail citizens out. So the process is long. 6 months is too short. But you see, the kind of cabinet it has formed, there are concerns that it is a little big, relatively big at a period like this. But then he has been able to create some specialized ministries that he wants to anchor. I hope I'm not speaking too much for the government, but from my own view, he's planning to anchor his reforms, his growth strategies on. One of them is the solid minerals. You see there is more activities there. You see a lot of activities around that sector. Then you look at the gas sector. The Chancellor of Germany was around recently, and the discussion centers on Nigerians supplying gas to Germany, and of course other European countries follow. Is looking at how to make more money from gas than oil. It's looking at how to make more money from solid minerals than oil. And you see, what is said all over the world, what is under the ground is more than enough to take care of everybody on the ground. What is under is big enough for everybody on it. So he's focusing on that. He has created a blue economy. If you see the package of that ministry, it's likely to be another cash cow for government if government is able to do that. If you look at Works Ministry, for instance, the minister has been very, very ambitious. He's been talking big. He's looking at big projects, one that will run from Lagos to Abuja, for instance, and will reduce travel as our 5 hours. He's looking at building a cross-nation road that will pass through Lagos, Sokoto, and Co. And these things are anchored on what the private sector can do. So looking at his government, politics is settled. He's moving away from politics. There's a new CBN governor who has been very conservative, who has been trying to do the little he can do to create stability at the foreign exchange. He inherited a backlog of about $10 billion, which the previous CBN elsman could not even, obligations he could not meet. He's doing that. He's sorting it out gradually, step by step, without making so much noise. The effect of that too will begin to emerge in another 6 months or thereabout. So 6 months may not be the best time to assess the effects. If you evaluate the impact, it's going to be the pains which people are going through. And I want to say at this point, it's been quite challenging for an average Nigerian. It's been very tough for business. An average Nigerian is spending more than double what he was spending before the president came on board. An average Nigerian is struggling to hit. If you look at the figure released recently, food consumption alone dropped about 3 billion naira during the month. People are consuming less because they have less money. That's an indication that hunger may be very close to most homes. Most homes are reducing consumption because they can't afford more. Inflation is on the rise. Food inflation itself is about 30.6%, and it's likely to continue like that for the next 3 months or so. But the good thing about all of this is that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Absolutely. If government is able to pursue these reforms to a logical conclusion, there'll be empowerment, there'll be wealth creation, then people can now begin to take positions, businesses can begin to review their operations in a way that they will be able to take advantage of government policies. And
I mean, we're seeing how committed the president is, but of course, everything cannot be left to the federal government. And this is where the roles of the state governors come to play. For you, how will you rate their complementary roles?
Well, I think one thing the president himself needs to do very quickly is to make sure that the subnational governments, they buy into his philosophy, his economic direction, his economic philosophy as quickly as possible. There is an online blog that's been running analysis on government expenditure at the state level. If the figures they are churning out, then there's still a lot, it leaves a lot to be desired. It seems to me that the governors are not determined to make a change. They are not very keen about changing the ways things are done. They still want to live big, on people's sweat, people's sacrifice. They still want to run big governments. They want to travel all over the world. If you look at foreign inflow of investments in the last 2-3 months, you see that it's only 8 states that have been able to attract investment from abroad, led by Lagos and the bit of Ogun, then 1 or 2 states here and there. You then begin to wonder why governors travel so often, jumping from one plane to the other all over the world, what they're achieving. Then if you see the kind of structure they keep, they live so large, they keep very big cabinets, and when you compare that to the growth of the IGR, you are left confounded. When you look at the structure we run at the state level, they are not sustainable. You need to compare the structure to what we have in the councils in the UK, for instance, where the mayor of a council in the UK lives a very Spartan, prudent life, and their budget is probably 4 or 5 times the budget of an average state in Nigeria. He is probably the only one who has a chauffeur, every other person goes by public transports. But it's not only the state, it's all across our public sector. Number one, we need to look at our budgeting system. We need to purge it and make people have confidence in our public finance. People must be able to say, you are asking us to sacrifice. What level of sacrifice have you put into government? What level of sacrifice is reflecting in your lifestyle, in the way you spend government money? So at the level of the states, President Tinubu is trying to carry them along by saying, okay, let's have infrastructure support program for you to encourage you. Before you can draw from that, you have programs, you have some projects you want to execute, then there is support for you. That's just to make sure that they are involved in providing infrastructure as time goes on. How much of that they are able to do. But the reality is that at the state level, people find it very difficult to appreciate the fact that they have to go through a very difficult period, and the governors are not showing it. The big cars are rolling in, cars that are 400 million naira cars, 600 million naira worth of cars. And it's cut across. People want to see the lifestyle. People don't want to feel the presence of government by seeing their big cars or their big lifestyle. People want to see them sacrificing and putting in projects that will support the federal government, projects that will make life bearable for the people. So it's a tough one, but the president must know that he has access to just about half of the federation accounts. The remaining half goes to about 48% goes to states and local governments. And if they don't have adequate buy-in into his projects, he may not be able to run those reforms successfully.
So let me corroborate your statement with this reminder by the Vice President at the just concluded National Economic Council meeting. The Vice President was reminding the governors and other members of the Council that the weight of the tough decisions to rescue Nigeria's economy depends on their cooperation and goodwill. How much expectations do you have of these governors?
To be honest with you, one or two of them have showed that, okay, in Lagos, for instance, there were a deliberate effort to make transportation and logistics cheaper for the people. But when you go to what each of the states have presented as budgets and the kind of things that form their recurrent expenditure, you begin to wonder what's going on. They need to sanitize the budgets. They need to sanitize the expenses, the finances, in such a way that there is more, the cost of running government at the state level becomes smaller and smaller and smaller as possible. They've reduced the state governments, for instance, to contract awarding institution, just award contracts. Then people are happy. They play more of politics than governors. They keep offices instead of providing services. So the cost of maintaining these offices, the huge number of aides, you just wonder if they will ever have anything for development. There's a state where you have a governor employed over 180 aides in one day. What are they coming to do? What has happened to the civil service? What about making the civil service more efficient, more buoyant, in such a way that it can undertake most of the activities these so-called aides are undertaking? And of course, they just employ these people for political patronage. And they go into government and become very rich. People are watching. We can hardly sustain ourselves, we can hardly get food to eat, but people who are going into this government do all kinds, especially at the state level. They are all living large, living fat on the sweat, the sacrifice, the burden, and the ordeal of an average Nigerian. I think this is very, very traumatizing. But then it's one of the things, the change must come from the top. The president must have their buy-in, and the president must find a way through peer support mechanisms and codes to make sure that they are compelled to do more than they are doing now.
So allow me to deviate for a second. In what other ways can we hold state governments accountable?
There's this peer analysis they used to do. They have to attach some benefits to performance. Just like we have a super banco, you will have your own contribution. If you achieve this milestone, then you can assess more and assess more. I think the president should look in that regard. Then the other one is to actually strengthen the anti-corruption agencies. The anti-corruption agencies should be strengthened. We're almost getting there. When Malam Nurubadu was in charge of the EFCC, he was trying to create a mechanism by which you can trail whatever comes to the federation accounts. You can trail it down to the last. user or beneficiary of the funds. So from there, you can ask the state governments. Some of them resisted that, but said, no, we will go to court and the court will tell you don't have jurisdiction over our funds. But such things must be brought back, where the anti-corruption agencies will be empowered to look at every kobo coming from the federation accounts, how they are disbursed, what they are used for. That's number one. Then sensitizing the general public. This is what, everybody in Nigeria, for instance, most people in Nigeria, for instance, believe that fuel subsidy removal is for the benefit of the president or the federal government alone. Whereas the federal government is going to take just about half of the benefits. The remaining goes to local government and states. There are some states in Nigeria where if you see what they spend money on, they spend money on just nothing, capacity building that will result into nothing, foreign trips that will yield nothing. These are the challenges, and that's why people are not very, very comfortable about government taking so much from them, paying tax, government telling them, please make this sacrifice, things will be better. So a lot has to be done at the state and local governments. As a matter of fact, there are some local government that earns about 6 billion naira per month in Nigeria. And people can't pinpoint what that money has been used for.
It's been used for.
The local governments, in fact, they don't exist in most states. What are their responsibilities? The markets, the inner roads and co. No one can point to, I don't know if there's anywhere in the world. So the budget system should be enhanced. Then there are some agencies like budgets and co. They are trailing, they are monitoring, tracking all these jobs, all these budgeting activities. They should be strengthened. I know ICPC too started doing something on constituency funds. If you've made provision for it in the budget, we want to see what you have done, we want to see the level of payment, we want to see the level of the milestone achieved. And so we need to strengthen this. We have to be deliberately making sure that they go after government resources as it's getting to local government, as it's getting to the states, what are they using it for? Then sensitizing the general public, making them to know that, see, your money is with your governor, your money is with your local government chairman. What do they do with it? Don't let them just buy big cars and oppress you. Don't just make them chiefs. Don't just make them leaders in religious institutions. Begin to demand for accountability from them.
All right. So the National Economic Council, chaired by the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, is a platform for robust interaction. Do you think it's too early to start assessing the council?
Well, they've only had a few meetings. And they'll be deliberating more on how to deal with the event, the effect of the fuel subsidy removal. And to have a good grant to actually assess their performance, especially the current one, would probably need another 6 months. And by the time we have a complete year, be able to say, okay, there's a direction. They've been able to align the council with the ambition of the president, with the programs of the president. So I think it's a little bit early to talk about the outcome of most of the performance of the council.
So let's quickly talk about some of the president's steps to attracting foreign investors to the country to boost the economy. How would you think this is yielding the desired results?
Well, every economy is looked at based on its ability to deal with uncertainties. We've had a high level of uncertainty the last 6 months because of the court cases and co. Well, you notice that immediately the court case was dispatched, it was resolved in favor of the president. Enthusiasm from foreign investors heightened, moved up. Like I mentioned earlier, the Chancellor of Germany had to come in, talk to the president. The president has made a return visit to Germany. He has made considerable gain. Many of them, when he went to India, we know what you did in Lagos. We saw what you did with Eco-Atlantic, and we are ready to move in our investments. Lagos State, for instance, has been on the Fourth Mainland project for a long time. They've been able to get support, get commitment for funding over $1 billion or thereabouts. So much of that will come once they're able to place, to determine, to say that, okay, there's stability of foreign exchange, there's security, there's government commitment, then we begin to have more and more inflow of that. Like I always tell people, Nigeria is a big market that cannot be ignored by any serious investor all over the world. Of course, investment funds, equity funds are competing for the safest and the most productive environment. But if they continue to intensify work, making the security, improving on the security situation of the country, making people to have more confidence in the economy, making people to consume more, to have more income, then you can be sure more and more foreign investments will come into Nigeria.
Right, so I want us to focus on that trip to Germany and the key takeaways from that trip. How significant is it for the country?
Very significant. The main thing is just the president has created a ministry for gas, and the potential in gas is as much as, if not more than oil. It seems to be the future of the industry. And don't forget, the Ukraine-Russian crisis has made Europe, as a matter of fact, begin to look beyond that direction. They are beginning to look at Nigeria. So what the president has tried to do is to position himself to take advantage of that. We have enough gas reserves in Nigeria. Look at that direction. Let's find a way to be a main supplier or key supplier so that Nigeria can earn more foreign exchange, even from gas than oil. So that's a major focus of his adventure, the visit of the Chancellor and the President's frequent trips. It was also at Saudi Arabia too. And the same thing, they want to help Nigeria to get out of its current foreign exchange trap. Nigeria urgently needs to generate enough foreign exchange to clear the backlogs to make the Naira stronger in the immediate, while we focus on intensifying production, developing agriculture, developing infrastructure, and making the economic work better.
Right. So, Mr. Oyedeji, one key message of President Tinubu to investors is that Nigeria is truly open for business. As a stakeholder, how favorable would you say the market is at the moment?
The market in terms of the size of the economy, the potentials for people to earn good income, Nigeria has always delivered in terms of rate of returns more than most countries. When we executed good reforms in the economy during Obasanjo's second term, Nigeria was probably the biggest destination for investment in Africa. At the point the economy achieved double digits, we had about 12% growth in the economy 1 year. That's the impact of good reforms. We are hoping that we are able to manage the reform process. The whole world is watching. If we are able to push it through properly, open up the economy, give incentives for people to come in, lure them in quotes, lure investors to come, explain the dynamics, create effective regulatory environments, create stability in the exchange rate, in price index and other likes, then you can be sure investors will come. We have a large market. We are almost 200 million people looking forward to hit, looking forward to do, but we need that foreign investment to come again so that I can kickstart the economy and begin to make bogus growth again.
All right, let's take a break.